So today we're going to talk about Chapter 14 in investment. And then the course overview is what investment is, analyze investment, macroeconomics of investment, market for loanable funds, market investment decisions, and that's it. What an investment is. In economics, few concepts are as commonly used and is frequently misunderstood as investment. In everyday language, we use the words broadly. We talk about investing in education, in our health, or in our career. In each case, the idea is straightforward. We accept our upfront cost today in the hope of receiving benefits in the future. The trade-off between present sacrifice and future reward is the foundation of all investment decisions. However, in macroeconomics, investment has a much more precise meaning. Because this definition plays a central role in understanding growth, economic growth, GDP, and business cycles. It is essential to distinguish it from everyday usage. Macroeconomic individual investment refers specifically to spending on new capital. Capital consists of assets and as machinery, buildings, housing, software, and research and development that are used repeatedly to produce goods and services. When economists measure investment, they are measuring purchases of new capital that increase the economy's productive capacity. This is why investment is a key component of GDP. Although it typically accounts for only about 1/6 of the total spending, it has a powerful impact on the economy because capital lasts a long time and shapes future output. It is equally important to understand what does not count as investment. Saving money, buying stocks or bonds, purchasing gold, cryptocurrency, land, or collectibles all involve trading existing assets. These activities may generate personal returns, but they do not create new capital and therefore are not considered macroeconomic investment. Economists also distinguish between investment and the capital stock. Investment is a flow, the addition of new capital over time, while depreciation gradually reduces existing capital. The capital stock grows only when new investment exceeds depreciation. Finally, investment is closely watched because it is highly volatile. It rises sharply during expansions and falls dramatically during recessions, making it a central driver of the business cycle. Understanding investment is therefore essential for understanding how economies grow and fluctuate over time.
Imagine you're standing at a crossroads with a simple but powerful question. Is it worth giving something up today in order to gain more tomorrow? That question sits at the heart of almost every major life decision. Whether you're thinking about going to college, buying a home, starting a business, or even declaring if you should go to the gym. And it's exactly the question that investment economics help us answer. To make good decisions, you need a way to compare costs you pay today with benefits you won't receive until later. Money doesn't stay until over time, it grows when invested. And that growth is what we call compounding. Compounding is the process by which money earns interest not only on the original amount you put in, but also on the interest it earned in previous years. It's interest on interest, and over long periods, it becomes incredibly powerful. For example, if you put $100 in the bank at a 6% interest rate, next year you'll have $106, but leave it there, and the following year you earn interest not just on the original $100, but on the $6 you earn. Before over time, this snowball effect accelerates. Mathematically, we capture with a simple formula. The formula is future value equals present value times 1 plus R over time. Where R is the interest rate and T is the number of years, this formula tells you exactly how much today's money will be worth in the future if you let it grow. And the results can be astonishing. If a company invests $4 million at a 6% rate for 30 years, that money nearly grows to $23 million. That's the magic of compounding and small annual gains turning into huge long-term growth. One man, Jonathan Holding, took this idea to the extreme. He believed that if you let money compound long enough, hundreds of years, it could grow so large it might even eliminate taxes. His plans didn't quite work out, but his obsession illustrates just how dramatic compounding can be. So as you move through this chapter, keep this in mind. Every investment decision is really a choice between spending now or letting your money grow. Understanding compounding gives you the power to make these choices wisely and to see how today's decisions shape tomorrow's possibilities.
Alright. To build off what everyone's been saying, I want to dive into how macroeconomic conditions drive businesses' investments. Put simply, the amount of businesses choosing to spend new equipment, factories, or technology isn't random. It depends on factors like interest rates, expectations about future profits, and uncertainty. Even though we talk about macroeconomics, it all starts at the micro level. Total investments in the economy is just sum of millions of individual business and decisions. Imagine every potential project, wind turbine, machines, software, housing, on a huge list. Each manager asks, is this investment worth it? The decisions of all these managers together create the economy overall investment level. Economists formalize this with the rational rule for investors. Invest if the present value of future profits is greater than the upfront costs. This simple rule shows us which macroeconomics factor really matter. One of the biggest factors is the real interest rate. Why? Because of the opportunity cost of most money spent on new equipment could instead earn interest in a bank. The higher the interest rate, the higher the cost of investing. So fewer projects make sense. Conversely, low interest rates encourage more investment. Take Valentina Turbine's example. The turbine costs $4 million and expected to generate $600,000 per year in profits. At an 8% interest rate, the present value profits is about $5 million. So the investment is profitable. At 12%, the present value drops to $3.75 million, making it unprofitable. Same projects, different rates, different decisions. This isn't just hypothetical. In the US, during the 2022 and 23 Federal Reserve hikes, business investment in equipment slowly, significantly. Data from Federal Reserve shows a decline in non-residential fixed investments as borrowing costs rose, demonstrating the same principle we just discussed with Valentina Turbine. A common misconception is that the business investment based on last year's profits, the current economic state. In reality, they invest based on expected future profits. Adjusted to interest rates, uncertainty, this is why optimism, pessimism, and technology breakthrough can shift the investment even if past profits haven't changed. Economists summarize this with the investment line, which slopes downward as real interest rates fall, investment rises. As rates rise, investments falls, and other factors like technology improvements, optimism, and lower uncertainty shift the line to the right, increasing investment. The takeaways are investments depends on both fundamentals like interest rates and human factors like confidence. Small changes in either can have big effects on economic growth. I'll hand it over now to Nathan, who will explain the pro policy for the next economic plan.
Understanding the market for loanable funds and the long-run real interest rates. This graph here visualizes the scenario A, decrease in the supply of loanable funds. The starting point EO there, look at the blue line, LS, the initial supplies of savings. Look at the green line, L1. This is the demand business wanting to borrow. The cross at the point EO at the start point, the interest rate is low. The shift, the arrows, the black arrows show the supply curve moving to the left. What this means is there is less money available to lend out. Why this happens? If households decide to spend more and save less, like after lockdowns ended, or if the government runs and deflects. The result, E, because supply is lower, scarcer, the new intersection point ER is higher up on the graph. Interest rate rises. Notice the R1 is higher than RO. When money is scarce, it becomes more expensive to borrow. Quality falls. Notice that L1 is less than LO. Fewer loans are being made overall. Getting back into it, how interest rates shape the economy. Let's start with the basics. The market for loanable funds brings together savers and investors. Savers supply money. They are the only ones who put aside income instead of spending it. Investors demand funds to borrow using the money to finance projects like factories, equipment, or new technology. The price for borrowing money in this market is called the real interest rate. It's the cost borrowers pay and the reward lenders received after adjusting for inflation. The amount of savings supplied generally increases when the real interest rate rises because saving becomes more attractive. Controversially, businesses tend to borrow less when interest rates are higher because borrowing costs increase and fewer investments appear profitable. The real interest rate settles where the amount people want to save equals the amount investors want to borrow. This is called the equilibrium or neutral real interest rate. Now, what causes this rate to change, you may ask? First, the supply of loanable funds changes when people's savings behavior shifts. For example, during COVID-19 pandemic, many households increased their savings because they spent less and also received government stimulus checks. This is caused from more funds to be available for lending, which lowered the real interest rate temporarily. Second, the demand for loanable funds depend on how eager businesses are able to invest. When borrowing costs are high, fewer projects offer returns that outweigh these costs, so demands for loans declines. When interest rates are low, more investments become worthwhile, increasing demand. There's a common misconception that government budget deflicts don't affect real interest rate. In reality, when the government runs a deflict, it borrows funds from the same pool of loanable funds, reducing what's available for private investment. This often pushes interest rates higher on concept known as crowding out. To put this into perspective, during the pandemic, the U.S. personal saving rate roughly doubled. This surge in saving increased the supply of loanable funds and contributed to keeping interest rates despite economic uncertainty. So to sum up, first, the long-run real interest rate balances saving and investment through the market for loanable funds. Second, changes in the private saving, government borrowing, and other factors shift supply and demand, which affects interest rates. Lastly, understanding these shifts help us predict the impact on investment and ultimately economic growth.
Let's talk about how to make smart investment decisions. Whether you're a business analyst or just figuring out if college is worth it, the key is a simple 4-step framework that helps you compare today's cost with tomorrow's benefits. Step 1. Calculate the upfront costs. In our example, Valentina Garcia, an energy analyst, is considering a $4 million investment in a new wind turbine. That's the cost her company would pay today. Step 2. Forecast future profits according for depreciation. The turbine will generate $600,000 in profit in its first year, but it will become less efficient over time, about 4% less productive each year, so Valentina adjusts her profit estimates downward each year to reflect that. Step 3. Calculate the present value of all future profits. This is where discounting comes in. Future money isn't worth as much money today, so we use a discount sale rate, 6% in this case. To convert future profits into today's dollars, Valentina adds up the present value of each year's profit and gets a total of $6 million. There's an even shortcut. The valuation formula. If profits start next year and decline steadily, you can divide next year's profits by the sum of the interest rate and depreciation rate. For Valentina, that's $600,000 divided by 0.06 divided by 0.04, equaling about $6 million. Same result, less math. Step 4. Compare benefits and costs. If the present value of future profits exceeds the upfront cost, invest. In this case, $6 million in benefits beats the $4 million cost, so Valentina recommends going ahead. This framework isn't just for business, it applies to life decisions too, like investing in your education. A college degree costs more money now, but it boosts your future earnings. Using the same formula, you can estimate whether that investments pay off. So whether you're building turbines or building your future, remember, invest when the present value of the benefits outweighs the cost. That's the rational rule for investors and is a powerful tool for making smart long-term decisions.
Investment overview. Throughout this chapter, we've seen that investment is ultimately about trading upfront costs for future benefits. While economists apply this framework to business and capital, why should the average person still care? Because the same logic applies to your own life. When the benefits outweigh the cost, the rational choice is to invest in your education, your health, your relationships, and your professional future. But the challenge isn't knowing what to do, it's following through. Invest wisely, act consistently, and your future self will reap the rewards. Thank you.